good afternoon to all of you. And welcome to the Economic Times Great India Retail Summit 2026. It's only fitting that we have the summit and we gather today at Geo World Convention Center today, which is an epitome of luxury in itself, and a venue that truly mirrors the scale and ambition of Indian retail landscape. Having spent myself in the luxury cosmetic and beauty industry and luxury alcobev, I have myself navigated the nuanced, emotive world of luxury retail myself. I've seen the firsthand how a store has evolved, and it's no longer just a place for decoration and where transactions simply happen. It has become a stage where stories are told and a complete storytelling is done. It is a distinct privilege to moderate this session on brand theater, designing a store for discovery, emotion, and repeat visits. To help us pull back the curtain on the future of retail, I am joined by a stellar ensemble of visionaries who are quite literally redefining the physical stage of commerce. So please welcome Consuela Rusu, who brings the magic of Hamleys to life through immersive visual storytelling. Nuno Rosa, the strategic force shaping the vibrant visual identity of Yousta fashion. Paul Cairney, who seamlessly bridges the world of high street styling and e-commerce for Bestseller India. And finally, Harshendra Maheshwari, a veteran in crafting the physical future of mass fashion. For years, visual merchandising was seen as the art of making stores beautiful. But now the entire story and paradigm has changed. It is a science of making stores profitable. In a world where discovery begins online, attention spans are shrinking, the real estate is expensive, the store must earn its relevance every single day. So the real question that we have today on board is, are stores still a place for display, or have they become strategic growth engines and strategic growth drivers? What makes this conversation even more powerful is just not about the creativity, it's the scale. It's the scale that these brands collectively operate over thousands of customer touch points on a national scale. That means visual merchandising here isn't just a decoration, it's a strategic influence at a national scale. From immersive theaters, toy theaters, to Gen Z fashion drops, from value-led mass retail to global fashion environments, VM today is a strategy, psychology, and storytelling rolled into one. Today, we explore how visual merchandising is no longer a support function. It's shaping our store experience, brand perception, and commercial performance. With this, let's jump into this lovely conversation, and starting my first round to understand the business impact of visual merchandising on the store's layout. So let's begin with the business lens. Let me start with Consuela. Where does you think that visual merchandising most directly move the needle today? Is it conversion, ticket size, or footfall? And how do you internally measure the ROI?
Okay, I just want to put it here. The sound is very odd on the stage, and at least Nuno and I sometimes cannot really understand what you're saying. Okay. Now, could you please repeat the question?
Okay. Where does visual merchandising most directly move the business needle today? Is it on conversion, ticket size, or footfall? And how do you internally measure this ROI?
The traditional answers would be conversion and footfall. But I think we're moving towards another point that needs to be followed, which is the dwelling time. The dwelling time.
Okay.
This is the amount of time that the customer spends in the store. every company has their own ways of tracking these markers. That's something that's been happening for ages. But as far as I am trying to push my team, it's increasing the dwelling time of the customer, because the more they get to experience your product and your environment, the more they will be able to connect with the product and be inclined into to making a purchase.
Interesting. Does anyone of you think it differently? Harsh, would you want to?
So first of all, I'm really glad that visual merchandising is holding a session in ET platform. While the function and the teams across the brands and across the industries, not just for apparel, but multiple other businesses have been there, the true recognition and true the acknowledgement is now. It's making huge difference to those who have a structured thought process strategy, whether you call it visual merchandising or you call it store experience, because it's not one of the KPIs, either conversion or the ticket size. If your store is appealing, the footfall to the dwell time, to the conversion, to the ticket size, almost everything gets impacted. And it is proven by the best of the stores, which look very, very presentable. I would say more than visual merchandising, store design, it's an amalgamation of how is it that you can actually create an experience where customers would enjoy shopping. And it could be Hamleys, it could be Bestsellers, it could be Max. In my current assignment with Max being about 220 cities, 550 stores, we take huge footfalls. And for that, the conversion as well as the basket size in last couple of years, I would say in last 2 years, has gone 3x. And with our new retail identity that we have just launched, we are not able to even serve all those customers that walk into the store because the services are literally crumbling. And I think visual merchandising is now just starting their great golden era in Indian retail. And I soon see that this will become an essential conversation in every walk of life when it comes to a brand.
I think it's also important to understand that your customer journey doesn't begin at the physical, it begins at the digital. So your digital has to match what your physical is. If your website is minimal and elevated, your physical store has to be the exact same. So there's even metrics to understand what are my customers looking at from click rates. Okay, I have a dress that has high click rates. Do I have that in front of my customer? So it's digital is also a great tool to understand what your customer's looking at from the offline, and then how do you interpret that online. Of course, your conversion and your footfall means one thing, but your footfall could decrease. However, your conversion could increase. So these metrics are great, but the metrics should really start at the digital, and it should really also influence your physical as well. So yeah.
Nuno, for you, do you think visual merchandising, you see it both on the physical store and an online store, is there a sync between the two which type of visual merchandising? As it has to be the same at the same point of time, or it can be different at different point of time?
Good afternoon to everyone. I think that currently the market is changing, and we will have in the future, in the upcoming future, more omnichannel presence, where the customer can go offline, online, and then have the full experience in the retail store. Currently, and with the support of technologies and softwares, AI, there's quite a big expansion on that sense. But at the bottom level, the customer wants to have the experience because we are human. So although we have so many things available across the world, we need to understand that retail is driven by humans and should fulfill that pleasure or necessity of the brand. So I think there's the transformations that are going to happen. They already started with international brands and Indian brands, even in the market, bringing new technologies, but one cannot go separated from another. And especially with the availability of information that everyone now has it with the use of mobiles, it's becoming a challenge to compete to the others. So it's important that we focus that both channels, they have their space, but both channels support one brand.
Super, super.
Interestingly, if I could just add, right before the session, I was having a chat with Nuno outside, and product can be experienced through online. You can always order something and it'll reach your home. but you won't really experience the brand, because even if you order a coffee at home or in a cafe, it would taste very different. And hence, I think a true brand experience is going to be in a format where all sensorial needs are appealed to, and the stores really, really offer something very, very huge in comparison to just the online shopping and experience the same product.
Great, great. I think very interesting conversation. And if to any one of you, if VN budgets were ever to be reduced tomorrow, what metric do you think would you fight for?
Could you repeat the question?
If VN budget were to be reduced tomorrow for your brand, which metric would make you fight for it?
I'm going to be honest. Everyone in this room have survived COVID. Everyone in 2019, 2020, 2022, I'm sure that they will remember that we had budgets being slashed, disappeared, and out of the question. Those that work on the retail industry and skilled people that are represented in here and across the country with our field teams understands the core value and the brand DNA. Without props, with budgets and other elements, we can easily transform a store and create a new floor layout, create a new color palette presentation, and that will reflect on customers thinking that something has changed. And that's our skill, how to enhance the brand presentation with the things that we have it. And I think COVID was really harsh because we know the reality. We need to be prepared for the future. Hopefully, we're not going to have that moment. But a skilled, trained visual merchandiser or someone that is working in retail operations in the field knows how to transform and should know how to maximize the floor layout, store presentation, cluster mannequins, and so on. So you can do magic. We are called the magicians for some reason.
I think as well, yeah, as Nuno said, if you have one budget, then you just react, right? Cause and reaction. So as a VM head, I have my travel budget. If that gets reduced, then I just need to come up with a better way of communication. If I have a creative budget that gets reduced, well, guess what? I'm going to start doing more minimal props. So it's just about adapting to the environment. I think anyone as business leaders, we've all had at one time a very high budget and a very low budget, but it's you as a leader that you have to adapt to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think very interesting because that's the first support system in an organization where we look at slashing the budgets, but being creative yourself, you find a really nice way out of it. So let's jump into our next question, which is freshness of a scale of VM. So creating, as in theater in one flagship store is easier, a lot easier, because you can place in all the elements. But how do you maintain freshness across 100 of stores without escalating CapEx and OpEx?
So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Amouage perfumes. Now, the creative head of Amouage said something about newness and freshness. And he said that's the gap between what the customers expect and what the customers experience. Now, freshness doesn't necessarily mean new products. It's how you rotate the products in the store. It's how you change the lights in the store. It's how you shift the props. It's how you change the scent of the store. It's how you change the music of the store. All of these elements are part of the freshness and newness that you give to the customer. Because ultimately, that's what you want people to feel. That's what you want them to experience. You want them to have this constant feeling that there is more to discover. Even though maybe those products have been in the store for quite some time, but it's our duty to engage, to make people engage with your environment, with your products. So yeah, it's rotating mostly, and I think that's what keeps people coming in.
I think as well, a lot of people, it depends on your ARS system as well. Tier 2 cities might have an ARS system of 72 hours, where your metro cities could be 24 to 48. So as Consuela said, it's then up, if you know that your replenishment system is going to be a lot slower, it's just about, right, what capsule collection do I have? What colours can I add to that? And as Consuela said, it's about rotation, keeping it fresh. If you keep the same product in the same area for 2 weeks, it's stagnant regardless. Again, rotation, using the product colours, adding it in a different way, maybe adding it to a clustered mannequin. So that's, you know, the people talk about, oh, that's the magic of VM. It's just commercial decisions based on data, based on product. So
Yeah. So, would you give some?
I think it's a very interesting question, and I would like to also take a little part of the earlier question that was asked, that, you know, which KPI would you fight for if the budgets are slashed? Being a leader and head of visual merchandising, I think for all of us, it is also a responsibility that we are equally a part of the profitability for the concept. We can't sit outside and just look at the show, my budgets are reduced or my budgets are more. I think it's a trade-off, what works for your brand, whether it's a mannequin or a prop or an experience which can be created with theatrics. And it is different from a brand A to brand B. In my current assignment, what trade-off that we've taken is, since we are a large-scale 550 store network, it is very difficult for us to make it reach if the campaign is launched today. I've got stores in Jammu, I've got stores in Aizawl, and that's really large a network, and hence we've actually stepped back and we have left the space of window creation, which probably is like 101 VM. We've added more mannequins, and now it's the customer journey touch points throughout the store which offers freshness. How do we do this? Customer comes to the mall many, many more times than they really come to your store. And hence, your store entrance has to be very welcoming. If they came on Monday and they came on next week again, and if your mannequins are wearing the same garments, that's going to be a put-off. And hence, we've gone into the weekly refresh of the complete theater of the store. It's not just the mannequin, but also the theater in the wall, theater at the storefront, where the rotation helps, and that freshness of about 30% stock which is getting launched with a monthly drop. Many brands still do spring, summer, autumn, winter, but that has been the thing of the past. Majority of the brands which are into the value fashion and fast fashion, they need to offer monthly freshness. And hence, a monthly freshness of about 30 to 35% of the stock in the store, as well as a weekly changeover of the mannequins. That's really, really working for us.
Yeah, I think we're quite aligned with that, because the beauty industry that I was in, with products like Body Shop and Keys, we would change the window every 3 to 4 weeks. And that would get that freshness into the brand, and for consumers to have that, the appeal to walk into a store and the excitement to increase the footfall, and eventually the conversion and the other matrices fall in place. Nuno, would you have some more insights into it?
Yeah, because I want to just highlight something. We are talking about freshness in the store. We are considering probably one site or a chain of stores. Something that India has taught me throughout these 11 years that I've been in here is that currently we have two major factors that even with freshness, we need to consider the weather in the particular locations that we have, because the country is very vast and that can affect sales. And then if you break it down, we need to embrace, we are in India, therefore we have a seasonal, we have a calendar of season festivals that's gonna impact that performance of freshness. So when you think freshness, don't think the product that is in store and we're gonna change it, as Consuela was saying, and well, put it together. But for us, it's even more challenging, because probably the display is gonna be set up in Delhi is gonna be different from the ones in Goa for strategic reasons, climatic reasons, tourism, and even religion. So in India, I have the privilege to understand that dynamic, because in Europe, we are not so affected with these number of festivals and niche markets. So it's quite interesting that one thing is about the product in store, but the other is how we're going to break that on the retail calendar to support the strategy of that business for that particular area. It's an equation at the long time that we need to consider, that something that is fresh today might not be relevant to that market. So we need to think in a way global, but act regional to adjust and to have a language for our customers. All of us are customers at a certain point when we go out and shopping. So that's elements that we need to reflect on.
Yeah, market relevancy. I'm not going to change my stores in the same way that I would change a Bangalore store in December, including also I'm not going to change my stores in Bangalore the same way I would change it in Delhi. Both their temperatures are completely different. But then that also goes down to your buying as well. Is your buying department in sync with the visual merchandising department? For example, I probably sell more dresses in Mumbai in December than what I do in Delhi. In December, it's more on knitwears versus Bangalore, but it's more on light knitwears as well. So
Yeah. I think just to, while I understand VM has that narrative of, following the global guidelines. So while we source in most of the fixtures localized fixtures and guidelines are localized, how much percentage do you, fit in between global sourcing versus local for sourcing of your VM elements? Do you have a ballpark number that you all follow, or is it all globally sourced or localized?
are you asking sourcing in terms of props?
Yeah, props.
I don't do anything global. I do everything local. Everything is local, either in Mumbai or Delhi. At the end of the day, I'm responsible for a budget, so I need to make sure that I'm responsible on spending that budget wisely. So for me to work with a global company wouldn't make any sense. The amount of taxes I would have to pay, shipping, you name it. AI could tell me I can get it in 2 days, but then if there's a storm, who knows how long I'm going to get it. So for me, everything's done locally. I have vendors in multiple cities that I work with, and I don't tell them my budget, but I make sure they're within the budget of what they give me. So yeah.
Great.
I believe that I believe that it was around 2018. I cannot recall the exact year, but the country had a different approach on taxes. That it was kind of like an internal incentive for the companies to produce locally, to have a positioning in India that will face the contracts of having external partners or industries to join us to supply the props that we needed, because sometimes we need to go abroad to source them. So there's been a development on companies internally to upgrade their system, still sourcing information and going to events similar like this, but to produce locally so the growth of the country can always be sustained, because it's a very large country and there's a lot of things to do in here. But I believe that's around 2018. I cannot recall exactly the date when India has changed the taxations on export.
Yeah, I think very interesting line of conversation. Yeah.
The localization and availability is completely supported by the vendor network in India now. I know for a fact that there are a few vendors who I work with are also working for Apple Store. And you can always say that, okay, which is the brand probably which is importing everything from outside to set up their store, printing, props, even Apple prints in India. And that's where I think as an India network, from vendors' point of view, partners' point of view, technology point of view, we are very, very well supported. I am not sure if anybody really needs to import anything at all with respect to visual merchandising, unless that brand has no footprint or no team in India at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, of course, I agree with everyone here. In terms of production for props, I think 90% probably of the brands currently in India are doing everything locally. There are, of course, certain props that are being brought from outside of India, but it's not just about the taxes. It's also about the convenience. It's about the vendors knowing their customers. It's the infrastructure that it's much easier to handle things this way. So a lot of it is happening locally for convenience, for costs, for speeds. It just makes sense.
Cool. Now let's jump into the third round of questions, as in to understand the future of physical retail. Discovery, we know, all starts online. And how do you see from 5 years from now, will the physical store be judged on experience, conversion, or fulfillment?
I had an interesting conversation yesterday about, obviously online versus offline. If you're saying to your customer that speed is important, then that means your customer expects that product to be there. Synchronization is also one thing. What am I launching online versus what am I launching offline? So your customer journey should be the exact same when they go on the app or website versus when they go in your store. So for example, if you launch a Valentine's Day collection online on the 1st of February, but you've already launched the product on the 25th of January, you could end up running the risk of selling out of that product. So there has to be a lot of synchronization. Digital is about speed. However, your physical stores haven't caught up to that speed quite yet. I think in 5 years' time, it'll be far more harmonious, to be honest. I can see that, yeah.
Which is how I agree to a certain extent, but I think after a certain point, online keeps its convenience approach, while in the very near future, I believe that physical stores, of course, it depends on your type of customer. I think physical stores will need to focus a lot more on experience. Yes, the journey should be seamless. The journey should match the one that you find online. Everything should be easy. But I just look at myself as a customer. Whenever I need something fast, I will absolutely go online. I don't have the patience to get outside, to go to the store, check it out. But if I do go to a physical store, I am expecting something more than just the website. I'm expecting something more than just the app. I don't want just clicks. I want to experience the story behind that certain brand. I want to feel the fabrics. I want to listen to the music. It's a lot more about the actual interaction and experience that the customer gets. Again, up to a certain point, online and physical should be absolutely identical.
I would like to say that, sorry to interrupt you, I would like to say that I think the future is now. The future is today. What Consuela just said is correct. And look abroad, Zara just opened the second biggest store in Portugal, in my home country, actually, where there's a full new approach on store design. They have a cafe. It has become an area of trying new collections, furniture. The concept is totally different, and there's a new approach on retail. Stores will become a community or a place to be together, as we had it in the past when retail was booming during the 90s. I've been doing this for 30 years, so I've seen the evolution across. I work across 3 continents, so I've seen the evolution on each country, and I think the future already arrived. In India, might take slightly longer because it's a very vast country. The network is quite large. But the customer is expecting a full fulfillment upon the experience. It's not just about the collection, but it's being aligned with that identity, with that brand DNA. And again, let's remember that customers nowadays, they have the offline experience, but they know what's happening on the other across the world. So we need to be honest for ourselves, understand our core value and what can we add different among so many other brands.
Great. Harsh, to your question for you.
So to answer your question, in 5 years, where you see physical retail importance in the retail network because Omni is kicking in?
Yeah.
I think it's glorious. There are 3 kind of brands. There are 3 buckets. I can order a shoe and it'll reach my home and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
But if it's a fashion jewelry, I need to go and try it in my ears. How does it look? If it is electronic, yes, certainly you can order it through Amazon or any other channel. But when it comes to apparel, that the therapy of trying it out, it's not a single product, single person pressing a button and calling it home. Going to the mall is very therapeutic when 2 friends go together. When a family goes together, we have a lot of validation that happens in the store. And that's where the tactile music, the magic comes in. At our store, we are not a single person store. It's always 2 or 3 people. It's either friends, family, siblings. These guys walk in and then they enjoy spending time in our store because that's exactly where the validation happens. And I think physical retail with the growing network of malls, I was recently in Sky City yesterday, the Borivali new mall, where Apple Store is going to open. And I was like, wow, can you imagine? Bombay has really expanded for a kind of a mall to open at the fag end. Like, Sobo is dead if the Borivali is getting an Apple Store. And that's where In 5 years, I see that physical retail with vendors, malls, brands, creating flagship stores, it's going to be a huge success.
Super, super.
I just wanted to add a bit of a funny touch. I think it's beautiful how different we are, because for me, going to the mall, it's not therapeutic
Yeah.
at all. I would rather go to a high street store. I would rather go to a store that has its windows facing outside where I can see the trees and everything. But I think it's beautiful that, us working in the same industry more or less and doing more or less the same thing and handling more or less the same issues, we have these differences and we have these different personalities. And I think this is what makes visual merchandising people so complex, because we have to think not just commercially, we have to think psychologically, we have to think in space, we have to understand lights, we have to understand sound. So I think it's just beautiful.
Great. I will now wrap up the entire discussion, but by a quick lightning round. So one question to each one of you, and an answer has to be just one-liner. Let's start with Harsh now. One VM metric every CEO should track.
It's not truly a VM metric, it's the success of the business where visual merchandising is also a partner. I think the SPF for your store, because whether it is the same store and you have an LFL or if it's a new store, I think SPF is the most important metric to be tracked.
Great. One mistake brands commonly make in VM. John, one mistake that brands commonly make in VM.
Commonly mistake and too much product.
Too much, yeah, perfect, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll just be very quickly. If you walk into a cinema and you look and think, I want some sweets, and you see a big wall of 100 sweets, you're going to go straight to the popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
I think a lot of clutter.
depth in key products, but reduce the amount of options that you have.
Yeah. Nuno, to you, one retail trend that is overrated.
I could not understand.
One retail trend which is overrated.
One,
Retail.
there's so many mini or niche influencers. We need to be realistic. We need to start thinking globally or in a wider dimension. This is driving me crazy. Another thing that is more related to visual merchandising, actually, virtual fitting rooms, sad or beige collections in the stores. There's a lot of like the copy paste currently. We need to look in the brand DNA, core values, core elements. But I will probably say niche influencers. It still drives me a bit crazy.
Brilliant. And last to you, Consuelo, if the budget was unlimited, one bold VM experiment.
One bold VM experiment. Kinetic structure. I would create a kinetic store. That's the VM experiment that I would actually invest a lot in. I think kinetics is something that I hope I will have the budgets to work with. Absolutely.
Great. I think with this, we are wrapping up the entire session on VNX Theatre, Brand Theatre. I think it was a great conversation for all of you. Great insights, great conversation. And thank you so much for your time and talking on the VM part of it. Very interesting and very engaging. Thank you so very much.